New commitment today for the Fighting Irish, another four-star player to add to Notre Dame's class of 2022, and this is another prospect on the defensive side of the ball for Notre Dame. Before we dive into today's video, I just want to let you guys know if you like what you see in this video, please hit the thumbs up to help support what we're doing here at blueandgold.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Notre Dame football video content. And of course, blueandgold.com is your home of the Fighting Irish. Phoenix Brophy Prep cornerback Benjamin Morrison pledging to the Fighting Irish on Thursday, July 15th, picking Notre Dame over several powerhouse programs. Notre Dame offered Morrison back on February 10th. Irish really jumped up to the top of his list. I was told back then it was going to likely be a battle between Alabama and Notre Dame. Those two schools obviously certainly in it to the very end. Long list of offers though. Auburn, Florida State, LSU, Michigan State, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Oregon, Penn State, UCLA, Washington. Again, lots of schools after this 6', 172-pound defensive back. Really came down to 5 schools, I would say. You have Alabama and Auburn, a couple schools he took unofficial visits to at the beginning of June, and then took official visits to Notre Dame, Oregon, and Washington. Morrison told Rivals.com that Notre Dame, Alabama, and Washington were the 3 specific finalists, but I think you can even narrow it down more to Notre Dame and Washington. Now, I thought that Notre Dame was the leader throughout this recruitment, going back to, I believe, put a FutureCast pick in for him to land at Notre Dame in May, just to flip that pick to Washington. You know, I was hearing a lot of positive buzz for the Huskies, threw in that FutureCast pick, just to then flip it back to Notre Dame the weekend of July 4th. Heard that that Notre Dame coaching staff, led by Brian Polian, Marcus Freeman, Mike Mickens, flipped things back into Notre Dame's favor after really pushing hard for him. I can't emphasize enough how impressive of a recruiting win this is for Notre Dame. Washington is a great defensive back school, the option that was much closer to home. He's got family ties to Washington, but even though he was leaning hard toward the Huskies and even informed the Notre Dame coaching staff as much, again, that Irish staff, led by Polian, Mickens, and Freeman, swung things quickly back to Notre Dame's favor. He gave a silent commitment about a week ago and is now on Notre Dame's commitment list. I'm going to pop on, this is Morrison's junior film in 2020. A little bit of shortened season. I believe he played 5 games last fall. He recorded 36 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 pass deflection, and a couple of blocked field goals, 6 receptions for 83 yards on offense as well. Certainly good foot speed. He's a nice, well-rounded football player. I don't think there's one thing in his game that is necessarily like a quote-unquote weakness. I don't know if he's got like 5-star traits, but this is someone who has a very, very high floor, in my opinion. I do not see a chance of Morrison busting at the college level, and maybe that's just unwise on my part, but I just see him as an incredibly safe football player. Maybe another way to put that is most likely to succeed. Just with his background, which we'll touch on in a second, how strong those athletic bloodlines are in his family, how smart of a football player he looks to be on tape. The one thing I would like to see in his junior film is a little bit more of him in coverage. I'm certainly impressed by him on special teams and at receiver and coming up and making stops, but you don't really see much of him out on an island. You'll see him 40 yards away from the quarterback, and then he comes up and makes a big stop for a tackle, but really curious to see more of him during his senior season on an island in coverage. How were his hips? How are his ball skills? Reading and reacting in zone coverage. Some of the different things I want to see during his senior season. But still, you look at his offer list, you look at his ranking, you watch some of the tape. This is another really good get for Notre Dame in the defensive backfield. 4th commit, Notre Dame has Jaden Bellamy, who's a versatile defensive back. Devin Moore, a big boundary corner, could play safety at Notre Dame if need be. You have Jaden Mickey, who's a nickel or field cornerback, and of course Morrison, who I could see really playing any of the 5 defensive back spots. Could play either safety spot. I think he could play either corner spot. I think he could play nickel. Like, there's just a lot going for Benjamin Morrison with his overall football smarts. He's got the size. He can tackle. He's physical. Really like this get for Notre Dame. I spoke to Morrison before he announced his decision about why he picked Notre Dame over some of these other primetime schools, and here's what he had to say.
So it came down to those 3 schools, Washington, Alabama, and Notre Dame. And I went to go see those 3, and they all had really good pros and cons. But at the end of the day, after seeing those schools, I just went with my gut, and I don't know, Notre Dame, I felt special to me. And I'm just excited to be a part of what they're doing. Coach Freeman out there, I mean, the recruiting class, I mean, it's just insane almost. So, I mean, I'm just excited to be a part of this thing, and I think something special has happened over there, so I want to be a part of it.
Notre Dame defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman was on the Chris Zorich podcast early in July and talked to the former Notre Dame nose guard about several topics, and one was about recruiting, and these coaches can't talk publicly about recruits until they sign a letter of intent. Now, Freeman discussed a recruit but couldn't name him because of those NCAA rules. But I think you can read in between the lines and figure that he might be referring to Morrison. And even if he's not specifically kind of talking about Morrison in his mind, I think that some of these topics, do kind of ring true when it comes to Morrison. So here's a snippet of what he said. Notre Dame is going to win, and Freeman was talking about on the recruiting front there. I saw it happen with a kid. I can't use his name, but I wish I could. It happened with a kid recently that went to a place and called us and said, "Coach, I think I'm going to go to this place." And I said, "You just got home, relax. What do you mean?" And he said, "Coach, this is a dream. This is where I want to be." And I said, "Listen, give us 24 hours. Let us talk to you. Decompress. Let's talk tomorrow." The kid called us later in the week. We talked a couple more times that week, and he said, "Coach, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm coming to Notre Dame." Bam, that's the facts of Notre Dame. It takes over when you give it thought. That's the commitment for Notre Dame. Benjamin Morrison, 4-star cornerback, Phoenix, Arizona, Brophy Prep, 6 foot, 172 pounds. Let us know what you think about the commitment. How are you feeling about this secondary class? How are you feeling about this class overall for Notre Dame? Make sure you drop us a comment, and we'll talk to you next time.